Let's do it. We're in. Nerfers Nap, episode 9. I know.
Every time you say the episode
no.
number.
I knew what it was this time. I knew what it was this time. I was just like,
yeah.
Again, I doubted it right as soon as I started talking. But no, this is episode 9. And it has been a while. We have been a busy bunch.
I know. I feel bad.
Gerald has been kicking ass at his new job. You were in New York and doing a bunch of stuff for the new book. I have been diving deep into photography work, and I've been
loving your posts lately. They've been fantastic.
Oh man, been having a blast with that stuff.
Good.
Now, I want to dive right into it because I just saw the movie. It's still fresh in my mind a little bit. I need to go and see it again, so I'm going to be a little bit foggy. But Joker.
Yeah.
For those of you who have not seen the movie yet, go see it. But this is going to be a spoiler-filled discussion. So
we're just popping right into the spoilers. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Sure.
I mean, the movie's been out for over a week now.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're in pretty good shape to start talking about spoilers right off the bat.
I think so.
That, and also, like, during one of our previous movie reviews, we said that we weren't going to do, like, spoiler-free reviews.
Oh, okay.
We were just going to go dive right into spoiler time.
Sure.
I had some people say, hey, you should do spoiler-free. So
I guess
might do something like quickie.
Maybe if we get to the level where we can go to those press screenings, then we can do, like, spoiler-free reviews.
Yeah.
But by the time we're posting the review, it's been out for a minute.
Yeah.
So.
When we can when the applications that I've put in for screeners get approved, if they get approved, then we'll actually start working on spoiler-free. But
yeah,
I mean, especially for movies like Joker, where it was hard to wait for it. It was really hard to wait for.
I'm
People
sure
are going to
I'm
be seeing
impressed.
it in most open week. Yeah, I had to wait a week.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the on-call schedule for my my day job landed right on the release weekend, so I can't leave. Like, I had to stay home and sit by the phone.
Right.
And I did get called out several times over the weekend, so I would have been interrupted even if I had tried to sneak it. So yeah, I didn't see it until this Friday, which was the 11th, I think.
And where did you see it at? What theater?
We went to the Marcus
Okay.
theaters in Village Point.
Yeah, we were at Exarban. I was like, oh, did we go to the same showing? But no, we didn't.
No, we should definitely coordinate stuff like that.
Yeah, we should.
It was like if we're gonna go see movies, we should,
Right.
and we can do it at the same time. We should
I
definitely.
had to go see it again, so the wife set up a double date to go see it. So yeah,
I've got to do my second viewing again as well. But yeah, that was a rough week because I was pretty much off the internet for the most part.
Yeah, I bet.
Trying to avoid it as much as I possibly could. The one thing that did get out to me, it was like a clickbait video that showed up in my YouTube feed. But it was like all the similarities between Joker and Taxi Driver.
Taxi Driver and King of Comedy are the two that they've been citing heavily. Yeah, which
And-
I've seen Taxi Driver, but not in maybe 10 years. So I it's fuzzy, and I've never seen the King of Comedy, and I kind of want to now. But everybody that was like, you need to watch these two films beforehand, I'm like, no, man, I don't want that to influence whether or not I appreciate the movie. So there's a lot of people that were like, you need to see those films before this. And I'm like, I'm glad I didn't. I want to go see King of Comedy, and it's on my list, but yeah.
I was going to say Taxi Driver is actually available for streaming right now.
Right, and I think I have it on my shelf
service,
somewhere, but yeah.
I never saw the entirety of Taxi Driver. I don't necessarily know why. I just never got around to it.
Yeah.
And again, all the reviewers, after I saw the movie, I finally watched some of my favorite reviewers and took a look at what they were talking about. And the comparisons between the two was like a major downside for them.
Yeah, some seem to feel like the Joker movie took too much from those. Instead of paying homage, they felt like it was almost lazy. And granted, like I said, I haven't seen Kings of Comedy, and I don't remember a lot about Taxi, and they could be very right. But I mean, that's why I didn't go see those films beforehand. Those films exist. This film was new. I didn't want anything influencing whether or not I appreciated the movie. And a lot of those same people were like, you'll appreciate it more if you see these films. And now you're saying, and I've seen it too, a lot of the critics are saying it was a down point for him. So I'll see him eventually, but I think the film was amazing, whether or not it touches on those other films.
I mean, so going into it, I mean, just the opening scene, like they cut right into, like, hey, he's unhappy. He's like forcing himself to smile, and you kind of wonder, is like, okay, is he doing that because he didn't have like the mouth paint on just yet? Right. At that point, it's like, oh, is he trying to like figure out if he's gonna do a smile or do a sad clown face and all that stuff? Who knows? But I mean, they drill it in right away that he's not in any sort of like extraordinary circumstance job or anything like that. He's just working as a clown.
He's a paid clown.
Yeah.
For places going out of business,
and
or
it's not going well
or whatever. Yeah.
Like,
they shoot to that scene that was in the main trailer with the kids and everything. That's how it starts.
Yeah.
And yeah. Mm-hmm.
And and then like the boss reprimands him for not bringing back the sign, thinking that he like kept it for some reason, and he's just sitting there smiling the entire time that he's being reprimanded for it. I think what was really interesting was finding out that his laugh was actually a mental condition.
Yeah, that was different. When he that scene in the bus or whatever, or it was the bus or a train.
Yeah, it was in the bus. He hands it to the lady who.
The lady, right, with
gets
the
all
kid.
Pissed. Don't bother my kid. Wasn't bothering your kid.
Yeah,
Fuck you.
A little over the top with her
Rude.
reaction. Right. But yeah. Well, and you know, the first time you see him with the counselor, you know, he's laughing, and then every time like it's harder for him to stop, and you
like
can
choking.
You can feel the pain in his throat and everything, and it's like, oh, that's a different take. I kind of appreciated that. That was different.
And it also made it kind of interesting, like when he's sitting in Pogo's and he's taking notes on Gary Goldman. I called that during the trailer review that we did.
Yeah.
I've actually heard the comedy routine already too, because it's on one of his albums. It was great. But he's laughing out of sync with everybody. Like he's always either like too early or too late for the punchline.
That's the wrong part. He almost didn't understand the joke or the punchline that people were laughing at.
Yeah.
He'd be like looking around, and then he'd laugh like at the build-up part. Yeah, that was interesting.
It was weird to see that, like that was so representative that he's not in sync with the rest of society. Like like they're just hammering that home even more. I mean, like I could go on and on about this movie. I want to talk about the negatives first because there's so few of them.
Okay.
I only had two things that I would have changed, and one of them is again we're diving into spoilers now. Like this is like, it was spoilers before, but this is really spoilery. So he's on the subway, and the three douchebags start punching his lights out, and he's already got the gun, starts firing on them. I have an annoying habit of counting the amount of shots.
Yeah, I did the same thing too.
And
he shot about two.
He shot
two or three too many. Yeah, he shot
eight shots.
It should be 6
with at best a 6 shooter.
Yeah,
I've never seen an 8-round 38 special.
He could have. I was thinking about that the first time, and then I watched that scene harder the second time, and I'm like, he could have thrown in a couple more bullets while he was waiting for the train to stop or something. But yeah, you don't see it on screen.
But I can't remember if he actually had spare bullets that guy had given to him.
Well, when he was playing around with the gun, he shot something in the wall, and he thought,
I'm watching a war movie, Mom.
Yeah, that was great. And he had a bag of bullets, so who knows? But yeah, sure. That's a minor thing that almost every film
that's
does.
just a logical error.
Yeah.
If anything, I was able to explain that away. But the big one for me that kind of made me upset was them showing the Waynes getting killed instead of, like, because I thought, like, as soon as the Waynes come around, they walk by the clown mask criminal, and as soon as he notices who it was, and he kind of like turns around to follow him in the alley. If they had stopped right there, I thought that's what they were gonna do. I was like, oh, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect, because we all know what's about to happen. Like, we already know, but they had to illustrate out that scene. And I don't know. I thought it just kind of like, it's a scene that me as a Batman fan, I mean, we've seen it so many times already.
Right.
So it's kind of like
had we not
seeing
seen
Uncle
it
Ben
in
die
every single film, it probably wouldn't have bothered you as much. But yeah,
it's kind of like seeing Uncle Ben die in every Spider-Man reboot.
Which hasn't happened in a while.
Which hasn't happened in a while.
Batman one is even that much more annoying. Yeah, I know.
They only rebooted that once, as far as that scene goes. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it was still really well done, but I mean, it was old news for me. But those were the only two things that really kind of popped out, and they weren't even really negatives. Like, it was still really good. They were just like, I wish they'd changed that.
Well, there was one point and we haven't even really summarized the film yet, so maybe we should go back and do that. But there's one thing that I noticed was that at one point the papers started referring to him as the vigilante clown, and I didn't see that. Like, it's one thing for him to be inspiring these people to rise up against the rich and whatnot, but it's another thing for the media to start calling him a vigilante, because they had painted him as a horrible person that killed 3 young and inspiring boys that worked for the Wayne. There was nothing to suggest anything else in the media, and so all of a sudden they were calling him a vigilante. And vigilante, even though it's still an illegal thing, it's usually someone that's punishing somebody else for doing something wrong outside of the law.
It's normally insinuating a hero complex,
right? But the media never touched on that. So I didn't like. I saw that on the newspapers, and I was like, well, that's weird that they're painting him that way when there's nothing to suggest that's what happened. But yeah, I think when we first talked about Joker on a couple podcasts back, I was hoping for more violence, and I'm not necessarily sad that we didn't get more violence. I think we were all kind of maybe hoping that on the Murray show he would kill the whole audience or they all be dead or something like that. I remember
we had a YouTube comment where somebody said that whole audience was dead.
Yeah.
I actually think it made more sense for him to not kill as many people
as
he did.
Well, it's more grounded, and he definitely only killed people that affected him.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that especially that subway scene, it's been done so many times. And recently even, like Jodie Foster did that exact same scene on, what was her vigilante film?
I can't remember the name of it, but I know the movie you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. She wasn't going on the train to hunt someone down, but there were some guys, and they were messing with somebody, and she was like, mess with somebody who can fight back, and then she kills them on the train. And I'm like, it's the exact same scene, and it's not the only scene that's done that, but it was.
I was astonished by his accuracy.
Yeah.
The first shot gets him dead in the head.
Well, they were all short range shots, but it was shot very well, though. I mean, and it was brutal, with the lights and the sound of the shot going off.
They got the tension.
Yeah.
Really well done.
Very tense. Very tense.
I personally liked it where he didn't stop after he had injured the last guy and the attack on him had discontinued. Mm-hmm. He chased down this guy who was limping away and was I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
And then shot him until the barrel was empty.
Right.
He pushed it to that point where it's I'm not defending myself. This is revenge. I'm making sure.
Well, he came to terms with it in that bathroom afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is actually my favorite scene in the movie.
Oh, is it? Is the bathroom scene?
It was one of my first favorites when we came in.
It's a good scene.
Okay, so let's summarize before we get too deep because that was good.
Yeah.
So Arthur Fleck, we open up. He's a paid clown, probably not paid well. It's definitely insinuated that he's not being paid well. He's not very popular, but he also wasn't his coworkers weren't really picking on him. They were just kind of not the nicest people all the time.
Yeah, they were all just beating on each other for fun's sake.
Except for the little person that was there, the little Brit. Mm-hmm. Which that comes into play later, which was I thought was great. His boss is an asshole. He goes home to.
But he likes doing his job, visually.
Yeah.
He put on a performance. He liked he was working at a hospital at one point. He really liked trying to make the kids laugh. He liked his job, but then the rest of his life was just shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they really hammer that home when he's being fired. from the job. Is just like, no, I love this job. He was very clear that he didn't want to do anything else,
right?
Except be a stand-up comedian, which again, making people happy, making people laugh,
right.
He's got a therapist who, alongside losing this therapist, who is also providing him his medication. He also doesn't feel like she's doing anything to help other than medicating him. It's just like, you ask me the same questions, you don't listen. All I have are negative thoughts. He's got a sick/crazy mom at home.
Yeah, he's very well, and he's got a crazy past as well. He was locked up at some point that his therapist mentions. Says, why do you think you were locked up? And he, he says, who knows? But he does have a past where he was white room straitjacket type. So he's got that we don't really know about. But yeah, now he's taking care of his mom, who is a little mentally deranged. She's constantly writing letters to one of the biggest men in Gotham. The Wayne family, and apparently she used to work for him or something like that.
That was an interesting connection, too. And she
like
obviously made a significant... She made enough impact to where even Alfred knew who she was.
Right.
And Alfred was kind of like privy to the situation.
Right. So she's been writing letters to him saying, how they're living in such horribleness, and telling her son Arthur, who she calls Happy, that if Mr. Wayne's a good man, and if he knew how we were living, he would take care of us. And Happy, Arthur doesn't really understand why she thinks he would care.
He doesn't have any hope in that whatsoever.
Right. He thinks his
feelings towards the upper class are already sullied at that point.
Right. So then what? So he loses his job because he got beat up, and one of his fellow clowns gave him a gun to protect himself, and he made the stupid decision to bring it to work with him at a children's hospital, and it fell out.
Dropped it.
So he rightfully gets fired. And then he kind of learns that, some of his other clown mates were talking some shit about him behind his back, and that no one's really his friend. He really doesn't have a friend, except the nice young lady that lives down the hallway from him. That's very attractive. The single mom. Yeah, Zazie Beetz. Is that her name?
I think how it. So one of the things that kind of summarized the movie for me. Was the concept that I actually hoped that they were going to go for, and I talk about this in one of our trailer reactions for the Joker. It's probably both. So he goes through all this stuff. He gets fired from his job. He has a ridiculously embarrassing moment of stand-up, but he doesn't believe that it was bad because Zazie had a good time with it. He has his laughing fit before the stand-up, and that was where it was really clear that he was coughing and choking almost. Like it was hard for him to stop.
Yeah, it's like Tourette's for him. It comes when he's nervous or whatever. Yeah, yeah, it did look like he hurt.
But his mom gets sicker. He finds out that after killing these people on the subway, the police are after him, as they should be. He's in the hospital with his mother, and he sees his hero, Murray, talking crap on him on his show.
Right, Murray is the late night host that he and his mother watches on a nightly basis.
Mr. Robert De Niro.
Yeah, it was a great scene when you first get introduced to this, when he's with his mom in the apartment watching this, and he envisions himself.
Yep, this is his first dream sequence on it.
Yeah, in the audience, and it's. He talks about how he takes care of his mom, and he's always been the male in the house, and Murray, what does he say? He's like, I wish I had a son like you, or something like that. And so you could tell he has hopes and he has dreams, and this is definitely his role model in life.
And then being downtrodden by that is pretty.
Then he makes fun of him on live TV.
One of his major breaking points. That was definitely a turnover for him. Obviously, the clown persona is becoming popularized with the lower class in the movie because of assumingly the lady who was originally being harassed by the subway victims, telling police that, oh, there was a clown there that they kind of started messing with, and he seemed a little bit crazy. So
yeah,
people start walking around in clown masks, and they're all happy that these stock market guys have been killed off.
And then Thomas Wayne goes one step further to call poor people clowns, and it was like, I mean, they definitely paint Thomas Wayne in a different light in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Granted, it's through the eyes of someone that's lower class, but he goes on camera to say, you know, granted, he wasn't there, and he says it. He says, I don't know these three men personally, but they worked for the Wayne Corp or whatever, and we consider all of our employees families. Yeah. And, you know, until these people get their act together, the rich people, well, he doesn't say rich, the people who have done something with their lives are always going to look down at these other people as clowns. And from that point, you're like, oh, man, you're just going to deserve whatever you get.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think the real big scene that the turning point for him was his mother had written another letter.
Yep.
Wanted him to deliver it. And instead he cracks it open and he reads it and he finds out. I think this is before she got sick, actually.
You're right. Well, she's been sick for a while.
Well, this is before she's in the hospital because they're still in the house.
Mm-hmm.
But he finds out that Thomas Wayne is his father and that his mother is...
According to the letters.
According to the letters, yes. I'm going as a storyboard here.
Mm-hmm. She's like, you know, I've been keeping your secret, but me and your son have been living in poverty, and you need to be the bigger person and do something about it.
And he doesn't react to this very kindly.
No.
Like he doesn't understand. Well, obviously he's not going to be happy about having been lied to. But yeah, that was a big one for him. So he confronts Thomas Wayne at some benefit thing, and there's a riot full of clowns.
Well, not
right outside.
Not before he goes to Thomas Wayne's house.
Yeah,
he goes straight to the house and sees Bruce and does this little magic show for Bruce, and Bruce is definitely your stereotypical rich kid with the big old playground to himself, but it's to himself, and he's
probably
lonely.
Like the $300 coat,
right? He's lonely, and he sees this magician on the other side of the gate, and he kind of has some fun with him. And then Alfred comes in, and he's like, "Who the hell are you? And why are you messing with Bruce?" Yeah, and like you said, Alfred knows who Penny Fleck is, who Arthur's mom is, and he says, "Oh, you're Penny's son."
He knows the real situation.
And
how dark it actually is.
Right, and he's, Arthur's like, "It's okay. She told me everything. I know about them too." And Alfred's like, "There's nothing to know.
Yep.
You're psychotic. Get away from here." And then he pursues Bruce at that benefit. Yeah.
Or Thomas Wayne.
Or Thomas, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Thomas Wayne tells him, he's like, "No, it was crazy. You're adopted. She adopted you as she was. I can't remember the exact conversation. Like
he said like,
see this again.
Your mom worked for me or worked for my family, and she adopted you while she was working for us, and then things went downhill. The thing is, they keep it vague enough to the point where you don't really know. I mean, he says that, and he gets pissed off, and he punches Arthur in the face.
Yep.
And
because
Arthur,
he's laughing.
Yeah, Arthur has a nervous thing and starts laughing about it.
His mom gets called crazy, and he doesn't take to that.
And he calls him Dad, and he's like, "Look at us, we're clearly related," and Thomas is not having it. So then he goes to Arkham Asylum afterwards to find his mother's whatchamacallit, her medical records, to look it up.
Yep.
And
again, a great scene there where he's interacting with the clerk and telling him, like, "Yeah, I fucked up. I've done did something bad." And
that clerk's like what? Yeah. And then he steals the records, and he reads that his mom did have a mental break, and that he had that really cool scene of just kind of watching his mom talk about it, and how they had found Arthur as a young boy, like chained to a radiator, and he was
abused,
by Arthur's or by Penny's
stepdad,
boyfriend.
I guess you'd call him.
And then he sees the adoption paperwork in there. And watching that, that's what I appreciated about the movie, because honestly, you could see that as, okay, his mom was crazy and he was adopted and he's not Thomas's son.
But you could also see it as Thomas Wayne arranging shit like that.
Exactly, because who's got the power and the money to do that?
Absolutely.
So I like that it wasn't certain, because it could have been one of the two.
Yeah, no, they never made it clear if it was really that thing. But that was the tipping point for him.
Mm-hmm.
Was because in his mind it was, my mom's crazy, and she's been lying to me my whole life. I was abused by my stepdad, and my whole life has just been.
She was
awful.
Villainized for him at that point, and he's been wasting his whole life taking care of her when she clearly didn't take care of him. Yeah.
And that brought me to that brings us to the scene where he kills her.
Mm-hmm.
He smothers her with a pillow.
Yep.
And that's where we get the line that we heard in the trailer. Is like, my whole life I thought my life was a tragedy. Turns out it's a comedy. Mm-hmm. And it turns out it's a fucking comedy. And he just smothers her with a pillow. It was dark too. But this was my second favorite scene. He comes back to his building, and he goes into his girlfriend's apartment, and she's startled by him there.
Yep.
And we realize that she wasn't actually all the scenes that we had seen of them being happy, and
her being with him in the hospital and being with him at the show. It was all in his head. Him
coming back with clown makeup on after killing people, and just walking into her apartment and making out with her right away, that already felt off. Like immediately, because we didn't see really any build up to that at all. We were just like, okay, whoa, that's weird, but it was in his head.
It was in his head, and the development is really interesting, and I appreciate it. I mean, they did it really well, because the first time you're introduced to her, she's in the elevator. They're both in the same elevator in the building. She's with her daughter, and her daughter is like repeating things that she says, and she looks over to Arthur and does the mimic the suicide thing. Yeah. And he, in his dark sense, recognizes that more, it's comedy, but he recognizes that. So then later he stalks her, basically. He watches her drop her kid off at school and then stalks her all the way into the city to work. And then she confronts him later saying, hey, were you the guy stalking me? And he said yes, and she kind of forgives him for that. So it's almost like that first interaction he had with her, he then just developed this personality that she would be into the darker comedy that he would be in, and she would be more accepting of him, and then their relationship just developed that much more quickly. But then you never saw the girl again, and I would wonder, like, why is she's hanging out with him in the hospital pretty late at night? Who's watching the kid? But it was never like over the top where, I realized it before the movie revealed that it was all in his head and she was not his girlfriend.
Yeah,
or anything.
I actually leaned over to Cece. I think it was when she was in the hospital with him. I actually leaned over and I told him, I was like, I don't think the girlfriend's real. Yeah. It turns out I was half right. She was real, but
she was real. She just wasn't his girlfriend. Yeah. So that was a great scene because she was scared.
Yeah, she was terrified.
And the way he looked,
she was
back
also
kind of
concerned though at the same time, because she asks, "Is there somebody I can call?" When he actually says my favorite line, and it was the line that I really wanted to hear. I had a bad day.
Yeah.
And that was the concept that I wanted. I wanted to see the one bad day scenario play out, because that's such a good Joker line. It's one of Mark Hamill's Joker lines. And oh man, I was so happy in that moment. I was so happy when they were like, all it takes is one bad day.
Right.
Turns out this guy has actually had a lot of bad days, but he was dealing with it until this one really bad day.
Right. Broke him. The final straw for him. There. Yeah.
But then we start getting on to more of the sinister side and the real transformation.
Yeah. Well, and now that the cops are kind of,
they know it's him.
They know it's him, but not enough to straight up arrest him.
No.
So he's kind of evading them.
He gets the call from the Murray show. They want him on.
Yeah, basically to make fun of him more.
Yep.
Them showing his videos got enough of a response that they want to bring him on for a sketch.
And the show actually didn't really seem like they wanted to. It sounded like Murray did, because even his who I assume was his producer was like, I don't know if this is a good idea.
Yeah, but the girl,
it seemed like Murray kind of had to convince him when he was actually at the show,
right.
Especially when he shows up in clown makeup. Mm-hmm. Like his producer's like, this is not a good idea right now, man.
Right. So they're pursuing him, and that happens after this great spot of him like clearing everything out of his refrigerator and just climbing into his refrigerator, and I was just like, oh, that's just so good.
There's no explanation for it at
right.
all. Like we hadn't seen him even hint towards doing anything like that before. Like that was just a great moment.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So he gets that call, and then his couple of his clown friends come over, the little person, and then the big dude that had kind of caused some trouble for him. He's the guy that gave him the gun and then talked some shit about him. And
I like that he came over strictly to like ask him like, what'd you tell the cops?
Yeah,
but the other guy was actually like legitimately concerned. Like,
right.
Hey,
the other guy didn't even know about it. Yeah,
Arthur wasn't too great. I want to go see how he's doing.
Well, and they said they'd heard about his mom passing, and they're like, "Why are you dressed up? Are you doing a gig?" And he's like, "No, I'm just celebrating.
My mom just died. I'm celebrating."
And he had like the complete white face going on, and he almost looked more creepy as just full white face.
Oh man, yeah,
his eyebrows and his lips and everything were all white.
It was absolutely worse.
Yeah,
and that's like it was full on creepy.
Like, give some color to that, man. And yeah, so then the big dude starts asking him, like, what'd you say to the cops? I want us to be on the same story. Yeah, clearly just looking out for himself.
And Arthur isn't having any of that, and he gets a scissor to the eye socket and other areas.
Yeah, he takes him out, and then he just beats him to death against like the
against the
wall. Door frame or whatever in front of the little guy,
which opens us up to like a great moment of tension, an absolutely wonderful moment of tension.
So tense.
And then something that I felt was like almost kind of like true to Joker, because Joker would not care if he let a witness go or anything like that. Like, he doesn't care. No. He's not worried about getting arrested or anything like that. He's like, whatever, I'm just going to do whatever I want. But he lets him go.
He lets him go. He says, don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. Just don't look at it.
But he's a little person. He can't reach the chain lock. And you're like, oh, man, he was just going to give him a little bit of hope, and now he's going to kill him.
And everybody thought that.
Oh, man, I was so ready for it,
the whole theater went like, oh. Like, they laughed a little bit, and then they're like, oh, no.
It was right when he laughs, too.
Yeah.
It was like when he turns and looks, and he kind of like chuckles to himself a little bit.
So Arthur gets up, and he's like, okay, I'll help you out. And he opens the door, and then he shuts the door, and you're just like, oh, my God. So tense. Like, oh, he's going to do it.
You were the only one who was ever nice to me.
Right. Gives him a kiss on the head and lets him go. And my theater cheered when that happened.
Oh.
Like, they, cheered.
Dude, I could hear, it was still a pretty full theater when I went in there.
Mm-hmm.
But you could hear some...
I know.
Like, there were some people who were
relief.
like, oh, man, I didn't want him to die, because he didn't deserve it, for sure.
Right.
Oh, but yeah, that was a really good moment.
It was great. Yeah. Very well done.
Then we get the dancing down the stairs.
Yes,
scene, which was great.
He cleans all the blood off of his face, and he does the iconic dance, which was my favorite scene. Everything about that scene was fantastic. It starts with the Rock and Roll Part 2 song, which is some controversy we should chat about a little later.
Yeah.
But then then it goes into just this fantastic orchestra piece, and he is just full himself now. He's got all the confidence in the world.
Wearing that dapper ass suit.
Yeah, and then the cops show up and start chasing him, and he's like, I got a show to do. I don't got time for your bullshit. And he gets chased onto a train full of other clowns who are going. It just happens to be they're going to a big riot or a big protest that night, and the cops follow him on.
In front of City Hall, I think.
Yeah,
is where they were going to be converging to.
Yeah, so he's on a train full of other clowns that he doesn't really mesh in with, but they kind of provide him some cover. And then cop accidentally shoots a guy, and everything goes crazy.
They get tackled by another clown, and they get into a scuffle, and he has an accidental discharge of his weapon,
and so then everybody attacks the cops, and Joker just does a little dance and skedaddles out of there.
He laughs it off, and that was very sinister to me. I'd be like, yeah, and it was classic Joker. Like, why would he give a shit?
Well, and again, he's this is very much true to the Dark Knight too. What was his master plan? His master plan was to inspire other people to go rabid, and that's what they do. Like, that's what they do in this film. He might not be in line with their beliefs. He's really not. He's not going. He never killed those guys because they were rich.
No,
But he just loves the fact that he is inspiring these people to go a little crazy.
And he was also like never on board with society. It was pretty much everybody else. I don't think class meant anything to him at that point. Like, he was pretty much just fed up with the rest of the world.
Right.
And it goes down. But he makes his way over to the Murray show, and I love his entrance. I loved his entrance.
Yeah.
Even Murray says, like, "Wow, you make quite an entrance."
And he's pissed at that point. Well, first of all, we've skipped this whole point where he is prepared for this show.
Yeah.
And he is prepared to kill himself on the show. He has done it in his room.
He wrote a joke for it. He wrote a knock joke for it.
There was that great scene where he had used his VCR to like record, a star, and he was building the confidence of how to walk into the room and how to shake people's hands and how to sit, if he was going to do the cross-legged, and then he was going to kill himself on the show. So you're just waiting for this to happen. And you have that scene where Murray, even though the producer doesn't like that he's in clown makeup because of what's going on.
Well, even Murray doesn't either. He's like, don't you think the timing for this is
a little political? And he's like, I'm not into politics. It's just part of my act. And that's where we hear the Joker. He said Murray called him a joker when he was making fun of him. And he said, well, why don't you call me Joker then for tonight? And then,
played out exactly the way that we saw it in the trailer.
Right.
And it was great. Just one more small thing.
Yeah. So he makes fun of him a couple more times on the show before bringing him out. And then, he just has that grand entrance where he is a different person as soon as he crosses that threshold of the curtains.
When he's sitting there watching the playback of the moment, he's sitting there and he's smoking, and he's just got this look on his face. He's like, oh, I'm not going to kill myself anymore.
Yeah, well, and Murray's talking with that sex doctor or therapist woman, and she's like, they're all just having a good time making fun of him, and he just takes it in strides when he comes out there. Does a little dance, he makes out with the old woman, and he looks like he belongs there.
Yeah, he'd been preparing for it. He was absolutely preparing to make that entrance on the show, and I loved his entrance. I loved the way that he came on. He's like, I'm gonna put on a show,
and he did.
Yeah, and then but things get dark pretty quick, and he confesses to being the one who killed the subway victims.
I wonder if he was actually planning on doing that.
I imagine that he was, because he was planning on killing himself already. So he's like, well, whatever.
It just seemed like he went on there super confident, and the longer he was there, the more like mean it got, and Murray was just feeding into it. Like Murray from the beginning was going to bring him out to make fun of him.
Yeah.
And he didn't even try to mask it at some point. And, it's a struggling guy. He brings out his joke book, and Murray's just making fun of him, and he does a joke, and it's clearly his dark comedy, and it doesn't resonate well, and and then he confesses, and I wondered if he actually planned to it, but then at that point he was just like, this is might as well.
I don't know for sure, but I would imagine that he probably was planning on doing it. But he tries to tell his joke. He tries to tell his knock-knock joke where he was planning on killing himself. And Murray just, again, won't relent on making fun of him. And it quickly turns over to, I'm gonna off you. And I don't want to go completely into what he says, because it's a very raw, emotional moment. And it's great. You should definitely I mean, if you're listening to this, obviously you saw the film, so I mean, you know what we're talking about. But I don't want to butcher it because I don't remember it word for word.
But right before that happens, you see the disdain in Joker's eyes for Murray, the guy that he had envisioned as a father figure. He had built him up on this pedestal, and now this dude was just punching him on air, just making fun of him, wouldn't let up. And then as soon as he confessed that he killed those guys, Murray turned into this, it's the classic late night talk show host that thinks he's a reporter now. So he was trying to
classic newscaster.
Yeah, now he was trying to get into the psyche of him, and Joker was just like, everybody thinks I should feel bad about it, and I'm tired of acting like I feel bad about it.
I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he said, he's Murray said, "Well, we're not all bad people," and he said, "You're bad. You brought me on here to make fun of me," and then it all goes downhill.
When you showed my tape, that the kill was excellent because it came from a very raw, emotional anger. Like he tells it as the punchline of a joke that isn't a joke, but
right.
He tells it in joke form. He's being talked over, like they're trying to cut him off and all that stuff, but he's just yelling it out. Kills him off. Doesn't do anything else. Doesn't kill off any of the audience members or anything like that.
Just kind of sits there and shoots
him again. Leaves the gun behind, and then goes up to try and talk into the camera.
To do the classic end of the show. That's life.
And they cut him off, and I was so upset, but I was so pleased at the same time because it was like, of course they wouldn't let that air.
Well, but they didn't cut him off early enough because then it panned out, and you see all the other stations replaying the incident.
Yep.
And so you saw that they didn't. They got the kill on TV.
And they were showing the kill on TV too, which is even more impressive.
They're just replaying it on all the other channels.
Like, apparently, Gotham's FCC is a lot more lenient with what they show on TV.
I guess.
But, and then again, Joker. He doesn't have a plan. He didn't plan on walking out of there either.
Yeah, I was like, so what? Is he just gonna walk out of there? And nope, he was arrested.
Yep. He's in the back of the car, and again, another favorite line. It's like the cops are kind of reprimanding him through the rioting that's going on outside full of clown people,
which is
like
gone crazy now at this point.
Do you see what you did? It's like, yeah, isn't it beautiful?
Yeah, they almost give him like a parade ride through the riots, just like showing him his masterpiece.
I mean, they really did.
Yeah,
like because everybody, like all the clowns, were like noticing that it was him who was going through there. They were giving him a perp walk basically. But it did not go the way they thought it was going to.
Right. And I was waiting for it at that point. I was like, someone's gonna break him out.
Really? Because I didn't know how it was gonna go down. I thought that the movie was maybe gonna end at that point. But it was actually a jump scare. The ambulance hitting the cop car,
hitting it hard.
Oh yeah, almost killing him.
Yeah,
like they had to drag his ragdoll body out of that car.
Yeah. A clown had taken over an ambulance and hit the police car.
Yep.
The one police... that's the thing. That's when I knew it was happening, because it was one police car driving down the street, and on both sides of the street, it was just absolute chaos. And I was like, okay, they're going to... So they hit the car. The driver realizes the Joker is in it, if he didn't already know, and then they almost like Jesus, they carry him out of the car, and they lay him on the hood. And just kind of like gather around to see if he'll wake up. The cheering that erupts when he starts getting up, and I mean, again, this is a great scene, and I'd love to see like a poster of it or something like that. But he's bleeding pretty profusely, and he like reapplies his red smile makeup and blood, and I was just like, oh my god. Yeah. Oh, so good. His makeup had been through a lot, and he looked like he had a fever, but then he did that. He did the blood smile, surrounded by the cheers, and it kept on flashing back and forth from that scene to the death of the Wayne scene, them coming out of the theater. of Zorro. They kept the original Zorro and the Gay Blade title on there. Except this time they're running down the alley to avoid the chaos, and one of the clown protesters it repeats the line that Joker said on the broadcast of you get what you effing deserve, and shoots them, kills them both. Does it well, and then it wasn't even a robbery. He went down that alley to assassinate.
I mean, he tried. We see the pearl necklace get broken again, which was a common theme.
Right. But then and then it ends, and it goes black, and I'm like, oh, is that how he does his little dance in the cop car, and he's got his
like, all right,
followers.
The Prince of Crime in Gotham has arrived,
and then it goes black, and I'm like, oh, please don't let that be it. And it wasn't. We had a little more scene after that.
I actually would have been happy if they had ended it there.
Well, the extra scene gives a little beautiful mind twist.
It does. It really does. It's like, oh, I just thought of a joke. You want to tell me the joke?
Right.
You wouldn't get it.
Well, but there's so much. So it comes back, and it's very bright scene, and he's in a white coat, or he's in a white shirt, and he's in a insane asylum, and he's laughing.
Back in Arkham.
But the difference between, and he's laughing in front of a counselor who I thought was the same counselor at first, but it's not. And the difference is when he was laughing in front of a counselor at the beginning of the film, he was in pain. Yep. And he was laughing at the last scene. He was laughing. It was not the uncontrolled laugh. He was enjoying his laugh. He was literally laughing at a joke. And she asks him, you want to tell me the joke? And he just looks at her and he says, you wouldn't get it.
You know, another thing that was interesting is that after he stopped taking his medications and he started going down this dark spiral, that laugh wasn't happening anymore.
Right. He wasn't having so many nervous attacks.
Tick wasn't there anymore.
Right. He had confidence. He was bigger than himself. Yeah. And then it flashes to Bruce Wayne in the alley with his parents. And he says, I thought of a joke. So I wonder if that's what he was thinking of. And then he walks out of that room with bloody footprints, and you can assume that he killed the person.
His hands are still cuffed, which is great.
Yeah.
Then we see him getting chased back and forth in the hallway. It was like a weird Benny Hill moment almost.
Right. And then that was the end. So, fantastic film, man.
No post-credit scenes on this one.
No, thankfully.
Yeah, I did not want to see some sort of like teaser into a franchise or a series or anything like that.
Well, and
I was really happy that they didn't tease anything else.
And they shouldn't, but there's a lot of people now that are saying they should have another film. And maybe they will, but when this film was made, both Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix had profusely said no. But lately, Joaquin Phoenix has kind of walked that back a little bit. There's been a couple of interviews where he said, I might be willing to explore the character again.
Yeah.
But at least this film wasn't a build-up film. This was a film. There was nothing like, oh, come back for the next one, then it'll be good,
That was my favorite part of it, is that there wasn't anything in this movie that was meant to lead into a sequel.
This wasn't Joker Dawn of Justice. This was just the Joker.
Yeah, it was just I want more solo standalone films. And honestly, if the DC universe decided to stick to that, where they're just like, you know what, we're not gonna do the Marvel template. We're gonna go down our own road. We're gonna do we're just gonna do great solo films, make a bunch of money off of them, and be done with it at that point. Like, great, perfect. Leave it at that. Don't connect them all.
Or at least have enough home runs to when you do finally connect them, it's earned.
Yeah,
and it's not seen as rushed. But it's I mean, and the craziness of this is that this movie was a $55 million budget movie. Yeah, it's a cheap ass movie.
Again, like, that sounds like a lot of money, but that is very low.
It's
considering...
super low. And if it so right now it's made it across the $500 million mark worldwide. It's on track to beat Deadpool as the biggest R-rated movie out there.
R-rated superhero or comic book movie.
Is it just R? Is it just? I thought Deadpool. So. Okay, well, maybe that's the case. Well, it's en route to beat Deadpool. some think it's got enough momentum to get to the $1 billion. I think it's a long ways from there. But if it ever did, it would be the lowest budget $1 billion film ever.
I think when it's when the viewership starts going crazy in China, that might be a little hairy.
It hasn't released in China yet.
Yep.
And this is the second week, and it only had a 42% drop or something like that, which is crazy.
Well, with what's going on in China right now, I imagine that the government's kind of like, we probably shouldn't show this to our citizens right now.
Let's not encourage the protests. Yeah. Well, that's a good point. I wonder if they'll actually try to block it.
Yeah.
For that.
I mean, they block stuff for less.
Yeah. For way less.
When protests aren't
Suicide
going on,
Squad didn't air in China because of the magic angle, which was bullshit.
Yeah. Oh, it was also because it was called Suicide Squad.
Yeah,
that was another.
Well,
big part
no,
of it.
but Warner Brothers had agreed to change the name, but it was the magic
they did?
angel.
Okay, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
part.
The magic angle with the villain was the final straw, but. Yeah, well, it's doing great. Todd Phillips should take a bow because this is amazing.
I want to see Oscar contention for this, but honestly, at the same time, I'm kind of like Oscars are mostly paid for, so I don't really care. But
well, and then there's that other stuff that like someone was saying that it can't get original screenplay because the characters are based on comic characters, and even though this isn't technically based on an actual comic arc, there's enough to say it's not original. And you're going to have people like Martin Scorsese fighting that a lot. So, yeah. Even though a lot of people would say this is the Scorsese of superhero films for sure. But I actually had to I have to look up his name again because I have to talk about the music because that was a huge element to the movie for me. Yes.
Because the music captured the tension in the film so well, and in a lot of places kind of captured the anxiety.
Yes.
But I can't remember his name off the top of my head because this one's actually kind of tough. But the composer's name is Hildur. God, I don't even know if I want to try this last name here because it's a tough one.
Well, try it and just admit that you're probably going to be butchering it.
Gudnadotir.
Okay.
I really don't know. I don't know how to say that name. But his name is Hildur, so we're just gonna call him Hildur. The one of the reasons that the bathroom scene was my favorite was because of the solo cello score. That it erupts into much bigger, but the cello music sequences were just, oh my god, they were just wonderful.
Yeah,
they were wonderful. They sounded so good. And they fit the scenes. They fit the scenes that they show up in so well. It was. Oh man.
Yeah,
it was
they
wonderful.
fueled the tension. They fueled the magnificence. They fueled the bigger moments of the film. It was great, and they didn't have a lot of other music in the film, but when they did, it was great.
It fit. Like they really wanted it to fit the situation.
And the Rock and Roll Part 2 song that played when he was finally his full self and dancing down those stairs.
Hey.
Oh my gosh, it was a great scene. It was a great scene. And, we kind of chatted about this the last time we talked about how the media was doing a lot of fear posting.
Yeah.
They had it had gotten so ridiculous. The military was starting to post things. There was a threat level with this film. I honestly believe that the reason why there's not as big of a drop off in its second weekend is because enough people didn't go the first time, and then they were like, "Well, we've heard it's still good, so we're going to go this weekend." But when I saw this film in New York, there were cops in the theater, not just in the theater lobby, in the actual theater that we were watching it, with their walkies on.
It's ridiculous.
We could hear their walkies going the whole movie. They were ready, and apparently there were undercover cops in all the screenings as well. And it's one thing to be like, okay, something could happen, but the media spent weeks building up this thing that something's going to go down, and y'all be ready for it. And then Sunday night came around after the first weekend, and there was no violence. So Monday morning came, and what's the new controversy around the Joker film? Oh, they used the Gary Glitter Rock and Roll Part 2 song in the film. Shame on them. How could they do that?
And apparently they didn't credit him.
I don't know if they didn't credit him or not, but Gary Glitter is a convicted pedophile. He's in prison right now, and that was the big thing, was how dare they give this pedophile song some airplay. Now he's probably going to get money from it, which, no, he's not. It's been confirmed he's not. Not to mention he's in prison for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that irritated me on such a wild degree because, I mean, you don't see those people getting pissy because a Michael Jackson song shows up in a film.
Right. Not to mention, this song has been in other films. It's been in Meet the Fockers. No one cared about it then.
No.
It's played every single weekend at every single college sports game. Like, it's out there all the time. I feel like someone was just, like, aching for another controversy around this film.
Well, that's kind of what falls into, like, the 24-hour news cycle now. It's like, if there isn't something that can be considered outrage news, I mean, like, they get a little hungry for something.
I think they do.
They got to pull some of this shit out. The fear-mongering that came around this film, I think that, if anything, if something had happened, it really would have been because of the uproar that the media was actually having about it.
I think they were building towards it.
Like clearly, if somebody had seen how scared the media was about this and how much they were pushing it out, they'd have been like, "Wow, if I actually did something here, that would really light this up because every single person's calling for it."
And it was all over the place. There were Reddit posts of fake posters that people were putting up in theaters that saying, if you're a single white male, you can't come see this film alone. You have to see it with somebody. And they were like, oh my gosh, AMC is posting this in all their theaters, and that was fake.
Yeah,
there was so much, and I understand that it's a very bleak point of view, and I'll probably get some hate for it, but I honestly believe that there are a couple people in the news media that were hoping something would happen, because it would be another 3 or 4 weeks of headlines that they were begging for, and when it didn't happen, then they had to jump on something else, and this was what they jumped onto. And there were multiple headlines saying pedophile is getting paid for the Joker movie, and that's not the case. And
and that's being super outside of the context of what the whole situation would even be.
For a 30-second play of a song that is played at every single sporting event every weekend.
It's like, are these gonna be the same people who,
right,
like, on any current release of Space Jam, they're gonna be like, oh my god, get in there and remove the R. Kelly song in there.
I mean, come on.
You can't have that in there anymore. It's like, no.
Not to mention he was a villain at the same time, but whatever. It irritated me that it was like, oh, our first attempt to really, bash this film failed. What's the second attempt,
the movie, it's like the violence in the film really, like, obviously, like, it's not built to inspire anybody. Like, they make it very clear that he is a very disturbed person.
Mm-hmm.
And you end up like the scene with the little person. That moment, like, nobody wanted him to die.
Right.
Nobody in that scene wanted him to die. They wanted, like, when that door slammed closed.
Yeah.
Like, that was an upsetting moment for people. I was like, no, please don't kill him. Like, there were good people in this movie who they didn't want killed.
Well,
like,
and it doesn't glorify any of it either.
No, it really doesn't.
It really doesn't.
Like, they make you feel bad.
Like, you are like, there's a part of you that says, well, these people wronged him, but there's still, but he is disturbed.
Yeah, it's like, you took it too far, bro.
When this movie first came out at whatever that was, TIFF or whatever, the film festival, and people gave it crazy good reviews, and then the media took it as dangerous. It's not. I mean, it's not. There's even no point of it. First of all, he only kills people that wronged him. But second of all, it is painted in a light that he is in the wrong, and there's nothing about this film that's inspiring you to go up and kill people. And it was just shameful that media took that much time to do that to this film.
It wasn't even because of the substance of the film. It was because it was about Joker.
Yeah, if it wasn't a Joker movie, I doubt it would have gotten that much attention.
If it had been named anything else and the main character wasn't Joker,
right,
that we would not have heard a peep.
Right.
We wouldn't heard a single peep about it. But because some dickhead in Aurora, Colorado decided to kill some people at a Dark Knight screening, like some awful human being decided to do something like that. Now the character of Joker is automatically associated in the media as somebody who will help glorify.
But again,
psychopaths.
I still blame it more on the media than on
100%.
that guy, because no one associates the Dark Knight with that guy. I mean, that no one associates Nolan's trilogy with that guy. Sure, people know about that guy, and they're like, yeah, there was that shithead in Colorado that did this thing. But no one's like, you shouldn't watch the Nolan films because you're glorifying that guy. No. Or you shouldn't appreciate Heath Ledger's Joker because you're glorifying that guy. But they did that with this film, and they were hoping... I really do think they were hoping that somebody would try to do it, because then they could be like, see, you shouldn't make films like this. Shame on you. But it didn't happen.
Censorship.
Right.
It's really what it comes down to. It's an attempt
the new
at
version of censorship by shaming.
Falls into that cancel culture crap that's going on, too.
Right. Like, but it didn't work. It clearly didn't work because this film is making crazy amounts of money for a $55 million budget film. It's like 560 right now or something like that. It's crazy amazing.
And it's an excellent film. And,
I mean, good on Todd Phillips for his background to come out with a movie like this. That's amazing. Joaquin Phoenix is not a surprise that he would bring in a performance like this.
It was from the trailer alone.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't know anything about Joaquin Phoenix, you would have been like, "Oh wow, this looks like it's going to be good."
And that was another nice thing, that the trailer didn't sell you on a movie that this wasn't going to be. Like, the trailer really lined up with the film. If you like the trailer, you're going to like this film. And I love this film to death. I mean, it was just so good. I came out of it with just goosebumps. And if you haven't seen it yet, you really need to.
I was just so happy to come out of when I came out of the theater. I was just like, man, that was great.
Right.
Because like the last movie that I watched in the theater, like the last solo standalone film wasn't a Marvel film or anything like that. It was Godzilla, King of Monsters.
Mm-hmm.
I was so disappointed when I walked out of that one.
Yeah.
That thought was still like kind of fresh in my mind. But like, God, that sucked.
Well,
I wasn't happy with that at all.
And I don't want. This isn't a DC versus Marvel thing, but I have to compare the two. When
age-old comparison.
I have to compare these two specific movies. When they announced that they were going to make a Venom film that had no connection to Spider-Man, I was like, how the hell are you going to do that? I thought it was dumb, thought it was a bad idea, and the film isn't that bad, but it's not that good either. But this film, from the trailer, I was like, okay, you know what? They're clearly going for a thing here, because it's the same thing. You can't make a Joker film without the Batman, and yet they did it, and they did it so well.
Like Todd Phillips, like, hold my beer.
Yeah, so you got to compare those two. Venom made a shit ton of money. It's going to get a sequel. It'll probably link up with Spider-Man at some point, and it wasn't that bad, but it wasn't that good. This movie was magnificent, and it really did that well when the cards were stacked against them, for sure.
And what's funny is that I don't want sequels to either film, but Venom is absolutely going to get one because Sony. Yeah. And this one sounds like it might. We're still in the might territory. I don't think nothing's been confirmed.
Right. The only reason that it might is because it's doing amazing. But
I would be ultimately happy if they didn't, because they didn't tease into what it could be at all. I would think that it would be great if they decided to choose another villain to do these like origin stories on.
Oh, sure.
Like,
as long as they didn't do it too much. Like, here's the thing. The thing I hated about Gotham, the show, was that all the villains were there when Bruce was a child. And I was like, what the fuck? So by the time he becomes Batman, all the guys are, like, in the elderly home,
So Batman at this point is going to be fighting senility in Gotham City. Right. There's nothing really to worry about there.
And they did that with Joker. And I was like, really? You're doing this again, but in movie form? But if they really wanted to, they could tie this. They could easily be like, the current Joker was inspired by the guy that was all the way back then. They could easily do. They've done it in the comics with, quote unquote, multiple Jokers. the fact that the Joker inspired somebody, they could easily have somebody to to take on the name 2 decades later when Batman exists and all that. They could do that if they wanted. But yeah, no, I don't want to. I
don't want them to do it.
I don't want them doing every rogue gallery of Batman either. I think they got lucky with this one. They probably screw up the next one.
I absolutely do not want to see a Joaquin Phoenix versus Robert Pattinson film.
I don't either, but I don't necessarily think that those two have to be different universes. I think that Joaquin Phoenix could inspire the next Joker.
Yeah.
It's just too beautiful to leave it alone.
Yeah, but sometimes that's sometimes,
but it's dangerous. When's the last time they've done it right?
If you love something, let it go.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. We are going to actually dive right into episode 10 after we're done recording this, so you guys can catch up with that immediately after, if not like immediately after this. But yeah, we've got to get in. Like we did a good hour on Joker, but we got to talk about New York Comic Con.
Yeah, and Martin Scorsese and some other stuff. So. Yeah.
Yep. Martin Scorsese's relevant for this next episode as well, because Taxi Driver was one of his films. And but yeah, Nerf Herders, thanks for tuning in. This was basically just a review of a review and recap of Joker, but in the best way. We loved it.
The best way, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna bang out another episode here, so be sure to tune in for that. If you are listening to this podcast on Spotify or iTunes, let us know. Hit us up on YouTube, hit us up on social media. Let us know where you guys are listening to the podcast. You can catch these episodes on Spotify, iTunes, be coming to Google Play, and hopefully Amazon at some point soon. I haven't submitted to those just yet. I wanted to get them to the big ones, but thank you guys for tuning in, and go ahead and catch episode 10 here coming soon. Later, guys.
Later.